Hi, folks. This is Gary Gomes talking, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the eclipse happening between the 19th and the 20th. Now, so let's put it up on the screen so you can follow along. Now, the eclipse is going to be seen in over Australia, Southeast Asia, so it'll have its biggest impact down there. But this is I'm trying to think of a way to describe it. This is essentially a partial eclipse. It's not really a full eclipse, but it's an important one. And it's and essentially, so this will affect everywhere, but it'll affect the southern hemisphere more profoundly in Southeast Asia more profoundly. Um, but but basically, if you want to get an idea on what's happening, what the effects of the eclipse will be, I did a chart for when the eclipse is exact, when sun and moon are essentially right at the same degree. So this is around uh, where I am. This is around 13 minutes after midnight on April 20th. So this will be between the 19th and the 20th. So usually, um, the general advice given during an eclipse is you don't start any major activities. You don't start any major events. You can do rituals. You can do worship. You can do meditation. Um, it's so for those of you who are versed in those things, you can do those things. But there is a little bit of a wild card, and that is the eclipse can produce unintended side effects on some of the rituals in particular. But usually, if you do something like, let's say, this is in Aries, if you want to do a ritual to strengthen the sun, strengthen your confidence, it's a good time to do that. It's a good time to do things like Gayatri Mantra, which is a really powerful mantra. It's a good time to do Durga mantras, which is a mantra for protection from negative forces. If you want to get rid of things in your life or make resolutions to get rid of things, eclipses are really good times to do that, especially bad habits or bad thoughts. So again, meditation is generally suggested that people not go out during these times if you can help it. Definitely don't go out. And just watch out for things, um, for accidents or mistakes or panic situations. The other thing is the major thing about this eclipse is it's got a Mercury. No, excuse me. The overall combination of this eclipse has a Saturn aspect on it, which means it'll feel a little bit punitive or heavy. Okay, so for those of you um, who have been feeling kind of overexcited because the sun's in Aries lately, this will be a little bit of a downer. It'll be a little bit of I won't say a dose of reality, but it'll feel a little bit oppressive, like you're trapped or you can't realize your dreams. That's illusory, but it will require more effort. And that's another reason why it's not a good idea to start things during this eclipse, over the next, I would say, between um, tomorrow late afternoon and for about 2 days thereafter, because everything will seem like it's a lot of effort. Um, Also, one positive thing about this eclipse is it can reveal health problems, it can reveal illnesses, it can reveal enemies. So that's a good aspect of it. The rising sign for this eclipse is in the sign Sagittarius, and it's in Mula Nakshatra, which is a kind of a destructive nakshatra. So again, good for getting rid of bad habits, but also good for getting rid of illusions and also for taking down existing power structures. So what does that mean in plain English? Well, if you've been seeing some efforts to take down governments or to take down or to change governments, this eclipse will actually manifest that kind of activity. The only thing is, and again, I, I tend to be very focused on the political situation in the world, and also on media. The time is going to be ripe for lying or misinformation. So I think one of the things I would really be careful about, especially, is about hearing about acts of violence and overreacting to them. There will be a lot of lying and misrepresentation in politics. Saturn aspecting Mercury, which also influences Mars. There'll be a lot of lying about wars and military engagements, and there'll be a lot of struggles. So again, one of the elements of our world is that people engage in creative misrepresentation. So they'll tell a little bit of the truth and hide the rest of it. So you're going to see a lot of that happening during this eclipse. But it is a very risky time for existing rulerships or for existing status situations. And within the next 6 months, as I've been saying before, you'll see a lot of scandals break out, especially around power structures, commerce, just essentially the ensconced powers in our world, essentially the authority figures in our world will take a shellacking, and there'll be a lot of cause or interest in reform and essentially in shaking things out. A lot of populist moves, a lot of financial protests, especially over the next 6 months. And that'll actually increase when Mars goes into Cancer over the next couple of months, and when Venus goes into Gemini. Okay, so I think one of the things you'll see is a lot of people who held power for a long time are going to be either forcibly ejected or attacked very effectively. Okay, so like I said, this isn't partisan. This isn't left or right. This is both sides. Okay, so one of the things I like about eclipses is that they cause there's especially an unveiling of secrets that happens during an eclipse. Some of these will be disruptive. Some of these will be that will be difficult. Saturn aspecting the sun tends to mean governments become more authoritarian, but they'll also be more popular. And when I say popular uprisings, I'm not talking so much about revolutions or violent overthrows of governments, but a lot of protests. And it may actually get violent towards the summertime, okay, in certain parts of the world. So just be aware of that. Also, when Mars goes into Cancer, emotions will be on a kind of a short tether. This is in about a month and a half, and people will be more inclined to take up war. Now, interestingly enough, Jupiter changes signs within a couple of days. So Jupiter is going to go into this. It'll interact with the eclipse, by the way. So you'll see an interaction of both Jupiter and Venus interacting with the eclipse. As I said on many broadcasts before, Jupiter and Venus are protecting this eclipse right now. They're protecting what I would call government or power misdeeds, and protecting a little bit from scandals. So But I think when you see Jupiter shift into this, a lot of things that have been taken for granted over the past few years, especially since 2019, will shift rather dramatically. Um, and that's based upon the 2019 uh, eclipse in late 2019, early 2020, which resulted in the COVID epidemic. Um, and so you'll see a shift. You'll almost see a not quite a flip flop, but you'll see a rearranging of positions. And like I said, I think you're going to see um, overall populist movements become much more popular, either on the right or the left. And you'll also see attempts to repress those movements. And as I've said for quite a few years, you'll see those particular groups coming together over the next few months, at least over the next year, with common goals in mind. So let's look at the map. But again, watch out for, especially if you're Aries rising, a lot of discontent, a lot of aggression. I mean, Sun and Rahu together is actually a powerful combination. So it's really tough to fight somebody who has that kind of a combination. But that Saturn aspect on Sun weakens it, makes it more stubborn, more oppressive. And Saturn's aspect on the Moon means a lot of stuff will be water, basically right in the open. Saturn aspecting Rahu. Um, again, I don't imagine we're going to see economic improvement in a big way. As a matter of fact, this will probably be the Jupiter entrance into Rahu will probably be. You'll probably see a brief uptick in enthusiasm and then a decline in enthusiasm. So whether or not that results in a big financial recession or a bank run, I don't think it'll result in a bank run or an economic destabilization. But certainly there will be scandals connected with finance, scandals connected with profit taking, scandals connected with government mismanagement. And like I said, this is not unique to the United States. Virtually every country I look at in the world is having similar problems to what the United States is having right now. Some of them are having it far worse than the United States. So if I look out to, so we're talking about shifting alliances. Uh, we're talking about a lot of countries shifting alliances too. So people, the United States had thought were allies will actually move over to China. People that had previously been enemies will align with the United States. It's going to be an interesting couple of years. So let's look at the astronauts and see where the effects will be more strongly felt. So as I said, this is the area of the world over here where we're going to see a lot of New Guinea, Philippines, China, maybe even ancient Japan. There'll be some kind of economic issues in Japan. Myanmar, I wasn't aware of the problems they were having until recently, but this entire belt or region of Southeast Asia will be strongly affected. India will be as well, and Australia. So this entire region will feel these effects in terms of government displacement. Saturn's passing over Pakistan and Afghanistan can't catch a break. So I'm going left to right now, but this is more where the eclipse activity is occurring. Since we're so embedded with China right now, since the United States is so embedded with China and the rest of the world is, this will obviously affect the rest of the world because China will have, there'll be a lot of repression in China and Indonesia and even Australia to a certain extent, and even some economic downturns in New Zealand. As we go up through this Venus-Saturn line off the coast of, it's really not affecting Pakistan and Afghanistan that much. But it looks like there are war problems or potential war problems or military problems in oh gosh, it used to be called Bangladesh. I couldn't think of it. And Saturn and Venus, maybe some problems um, with water in Pakistan and Afghanistan. Um, Also, we look at this Venus line is running through Iran, so there'll be some problems with women that Iran will face. If we go up here to where Iraq is, and all through Finland, Norway, and Sweden. A lot of it, I mean, those areas will be relatively protected, but again, uh, unusual problems with water or even potentially eruptions. And as we go through Egypt, so this will be the part of the world which will be affected. Now, Turkey's just outside of the loop, but there will be attacks on government power in Turkey and maybe even some demonstrations. And definitely around Greece, Italy, Germany. France looks like it's out of the equation right now. Some economic hardships, though, for most of Western Europe, definitely. And this is one of the shifts I'm seeing in terms of relationships, because I think France is definitely drawing closer to China. And this Saturn line indicates that England is separating even more from the European Union over here. And all through Africa. So we have all the issues in the Sudan. The war in the Sudan will get worse, and there'll be, unfortunately, I think, incidences of atrocities or war crimes showing up. So I mean that is already in evidence in Russia, but 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 Sudan is popping up more and more of an issue. Syria will pop up more and more as an issue with this Venus line running through it. In terms of war. And finally, Saturn is going through Azores and Canaries. It's not really that bad a line, but as a Venus and an ascending Saturn line. So again, maybe water problems, maybe volcanic problems. And Russia did have a volcano in this general area, I believe. So that's already manifested. As we go over to the Americas, you'll see some problems. Maybe some violence in South America. The entire continent is having issues in terms of truthfulness from the media, especially in Brazil. And if you go over to, and also communications issues, so you'll see some power issues. So some power grid issues in Brazil, and also in Bolivia and Colombia and Venezuela, and also in Argentina. Argentina, I know, has been experiencing some problems. United States, bellicose near, a lot of emphasis on court matters on the eastern seaboard in the United States. Maybe even some violent tendencies in Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic and Haiti. And as we go through this line right here, this line is an ascending Venus line, so some water issues coming up from around the Great Lakes region all the way down to Texas, and throughout Mexico, and Venus is in Taurus. So some issues about land rights or possessions. And finally, Saturn line is hitting California up through Montana and Idaho, and there's also a Mercury line going through Saturn, going through Washington State and Oregon. So that indicates to me that both California. So we're not really seeing improving situations in California and Oregon and Washington, or for that matter, on the west coast of Alaska, but that's a relatively sparsely. I'm sorry, not the west coast of Alaska, the west coast of Canada. That's a fairly sparsely populated area as far as I know, except for this region over here. So Vancouver may be having some problems. But overall, yeah, a lot of political disruption, it appears to me, over the next. Now, again, eclipses will normally not show on the actual day. Sometimes they will, but they won't show on the actual day. And that's usually only if there's a planet or a rising sign, which is actually on the eclipse point. But I think given where the eclipses are occurring, um, there's a lot of problems in politics just because of the fifth house from, especially in the United States politics, uh, especially because of this eclipse landing in the fifth house of politics. In other parts of the world, in the European Union countries, a lot of those countries have Virgo risings or have mutable signs rising. And also China and Russia. A lot of problems with eighth house matters that is hidden matters, essentially matters that they're trying to deal with how to build a supply, how to get out of um, the lock they're currently in economically. So Russia is actually doing, at least as far as I can tell, although I haven't pulled up the map from Russia, economically it's actually starting to do pretty well. And there are a variety of reasons for that, which I won't get into for this particular um, broadcast, but a lot of it has to do with oil supply and countries not really being afraid of trading with them. So I think um, the Saudis have well, I don't want to talk about the Saudis because they haven't looked at their birth map all that well, but I know the European Union is really a lot of the countries in the European Union, like France, England, or France, formerly England, um, Germany, have these mutable sign ascendants. And as I said, China is affected a little differently. Its rising sign is a little bit different, and Russia's rising sign is a little different, but it's mutable as well. So a lot of some of the politics in Russia will be affected by it. All right, so that's all that I have for now. Turkey is kind of an interesting situation because I know a lot of people in Turkey, and this does represent a danger to the existing power structure in Turkey. Whether or not it means we're going to see a new president or not in Turkey, I don't know. There are a lot of things in the fifth house which in the 11th house of Turkey's chart, which kind of diminish that, but it wouldn't be surprising to see a new leader. But I'll talk about that in future broadcasts. And let me end it with that. But again, expect communications problems, transportation problems, more government cover-ups exposed, and like I said, from everywhere, not just from the United States, and also a large argument about media over the next year or so. Okay? All right. So that's it, folks. Thanks for watching. And if you like what I'm doing, my name is Gary Gomes. 508-525-0001 is the best way to contact me. If you like what I'm doing, please like, subscribe, and engage me in a dialogue. You know, if you want to know about a particular country or a particular situation connected with your sign, let me know. And we'll talk. It won't be a full reading. I'll just give you some general information. I do full readings, so for people, if you're interested in that as well. So again, I love you all. Thanks for watching. I want to give you a quick update on the eclipse and what it means, or what I think it means. And we'll go from there. All right. Peace, everyone. Thanks a lot. I love you all. And I wish you realization. That's a line I used to use in college a lot. And I still mean it. Okay. Bye-bye, everyone. Be well. Be safe.